Hi everyone, we're in the energy of transformational Scorpio, and I make some suggestions in this little video of how to use this energy for your benefit. There was a new moon in Scorpio late last week, and this is a time to embark upon new projects, but there's also Mercury went retrograde last Friday, and that's last Friday and the 2nd, and that makes communication difficult. And so this is a time for you to be planning what you want to do, plan your strategies, plan your communications for the lead up to Christmas if you've got a business, or if you haven't, plan your communications after the 21st of November. In this conversation, there are some comments on energy for transforming the brain and also for the body as usual. As I wrote this letter, I was in Canada with my daughter and other members of the family, and I feel very grateful that I'm able to travel and enjoy company of family so far away. So in the Northern Hemisphere, we were experiencing fall, which is a great example of transformation of energy as the trees drop their leaves and retract their energy to recharge for the next season. And of course, they're the beautiful, beautiful colours of autumn. To show you this, I had a Thanksgiving dinner with part of the family, and one of the great-granddaughters made these for a number of members of the family. So this is rather beautiful. Thanksgiving, thanks for the harvest, thanks for the good things we have in life. And we need to remember to be thankful for what we do have. Now we're in Scorpio energy, and intuition is different from what the mind is saying. Scorpio is energy with many hidden places. Those with strong Scorpio energy in their charts can often have a gut feel about an issue. Now that's not the only one, they're not the only ones who have gut feel experiences. Often people with strong Cancerian and Piscean energy also have these gut feels, but we can all do that. It's just we haven't been trained to notice our gut feel. And the question for the month is do you listen to your gut instincts when faced with decisions? I'm inspired by an article in a magazine called Breathe, which I actually left in Canada for my daughter, in which the writer Charlotte Booth examines the difference between gut feel and simply making excuses for poor decisions. She explains, if you're able to anticipate what your brain is going to tell you, it's more likely to be an excuse than a gut feel. So some more comments for advancing your life experience. I mentioned briefly Mercury retrograde, and this is the 3rd time this year that Mercury is going retrograde in water signs. And so it is retrograde until about the 21st of November. It appears to go backwards. It doesn't really go backwards. But this is a time to dig deep into our emotional archives. What down there are you feeling that really you need to let go of? Shining the light on those hidden recesses of our psyche. And it's a good time to have a frank and honest discussion with yourself and with others, without casting blames. There's no blame. There doesn't need to be blame, because we're all responsible for our own responses. And so clear out any misunderstandings and forge loving, and if they can't be loving, at least make them respectful relationships. Makes life easier. On a practical level, check and double check any direct communication, ensuring that the communication is what you really mean and that the recipient is the right recipient and gets the message you want them to get. If you encounter difficulties when you are traveling, allow yourself to just flow with the energy rather than getting upset about the disruption. Often you can't do anything about it. Some things are beyond your control. The one thing you can control is your attitude. Now, your amazing body. I'm going to stop this phone falling down. Being in a different place allowed me to explore different yoga practices as a student. One class, the teacher led a series of stretches. She called it a hatha class. And compared with what I normally teach, this activity was relatively gentle. But what I found valuable were the gentle exercises for the shoulders. So many of us spend time hunched over a computer or a phone or something else. And so our shoulders get quite tense. So great to be able to make them move in different ways. Another class I took was not a yoga class, but a series of exercises to work on the fascia and specifically focusing on the hips. How many of us older folk have stiff hips? And stiffness can lead to injuries of all sorts. That was a tough class, but it was a good class. And so these experiences, pardon me, provide thought for possibilities to include different exercises in my regular classes and to teach in the new year. Exercising the shoulders and the hips, both places where our bodies hold tension, releases the body and allows relaxation. I love books. Do you love books? And I was browsing in a second-hand bookshop. There's some amazing books in second-hand bookshops. And I found a book by Norman Doidge, which I promptly purchased. It was really exciting because I read his book about the amazing brain. And I read this book. It was really, really interesting. But then I promptly left it at my cousin's place in Halliburton, way up in the forest in northern Ontario. But not before I had found and enjoyed some really interesting accounts of how we can consciously influence and shape the changes in our brains. Now, it's not possible for everyone, but for some, Norman describes how sufferers of Parkinson's may better manage their physical condition. He also describes the experience of a pain physician who had found from personal experience, as in, getting himself injured, ways to manage chronic pain by working consciously with the brain to reduce the debilitating physical sensations. Now, these are for strong-minded people, and not everybody's going to be able to use these exercises. But it's interesting that the brain can be used to manage our body in so many different ways. And then I had some delightful time with the wildlife. And while I'm not into moose hunting, which is what one of my Canadian cousins likes to do, I am into supporting wildlife remain wild. My cousin Margaret took me with her on her regular shift at a wildlife sanctuary where the intention is to repair injured little critters or to give them a chance to thrive, rehabilitate them, and to then release them back into the wild. On this particular day, we fed the fledglings several times. They don't really like having tubes stuck down their throats, but it made their tummies full and they stopped squeaking. We injected turtles with medication, cleared out Mr. Fox's stinky den, cared for a Canada goose with a damaged leg that had been damaged by a fishing line. As human beings, we are so careless with our bits and pieces, and this poor goose was in danger of losing its leg and its foot possibly. Anyway, it'd been, the twine had been removed and we were just giving it a chance to heal. He wasn't very happy though, you know, he didn't like being confined. Anyway, he was, I think, subsequently released, which was great, which is what you want to do. And I was delighted to help care for the little squirrels. I had a tiny baby little girl squirrel, who sucked vigorously on about 20 mils of a milk formula several times, and she scurried around and then she scuttled around all over us and over me, and it was lovely to hold her and then pop her back into her little cage where she found her space in her nest. So that was fun. I really enjoyed being able to contribute to the Canadian wildlife. And a couple of days later, we were driving south, where Margaret was going to take me to another cousin. And we took 5 of these rehabilitated squirrels for release. And so she scoured the countryside, looking to see what's a suitable place to let these little critters go. And we found a place in the forest where there's some deciduous trees as well as some evergreen trees and a space for us to walk. And we opened the cage, and one by one these little critters scurried away. And we just hope that they have a good life. I've spoken about this before, but one of my friends and one of my yoga students is very talented as a healer, and she has recently released a book about information medicine. Let me show you. I had the privilege of editing this book earlier in the year, and she released this book. She had a big book release on Saturday. So as our belief systems evolve and the way in which we lead our lives is transforming, we consider different ways to support our physical bodies. And do you know that more than 80% of the Australian population seeks health treatment from non-medical practitioners? Birgit Bright has spent years studying the new homeopathy based on work by Eric Köbler. And this practice uses symbols. You can see these symbols along the side here. Oh, my butterfly's fallen down. He's flown away. Oh dear. Birgit practices using symbols to adjust the energy of the body and aid the healing and restoring the body to its natural state. And she now has a practice in Terranora, New South Wales. And if you are local to southern Queensland or New South Wales, she'd love to see you in Terranora. So particularly supporting parents of children. She's really focusing her work on children so that, you don't have to feed your children antibiotics and other medicines that can have harmful side effects if you can use symbols to heal their bodies. And so finally, always got something about wonderful things for the body, because we've got to keep our body going as well. This little device called a galvanic spa was a game changer when it was first released just over 10 years ago. And the company has now improved the technology and has just released the next iteration. I don't have it. It has a much nicer control panel up here, but it still has the same effect of ironing out the wrinkles. You see? Works really well. And it's changed many, many faces. And as for so many of the products and devices provided by Nu Skin, the results are visible and lasting. So if you've been thinking about ironing out your wrinkles, this might just be the time to invest in the new galvanic spa. Maybe even put it on your wish list for Christmas. Finally, tidy up, I encourage you to consciously engage with the transformational energies being offered in Scorpio. There are huge energetic adjustments coming to us in huge energetic adjustments coming to us in December and in January. Energy that we haven't had in the world for about 400 or 500 years. And so clear out your garbage. Take this opportunity to get rid of stuff you no longer need in your own psyche, in your own self, and also in your house. How many things do you really need? How many clothes do you really need? The things you haven't touched for 2 years or 5 years, do you really need them anymore? Who else could benefit from them? So clear out the garbage so that you can take the opportunity to benefit from the energies coming to us in the new year. So thanks for listening. Let me know what you think. Message me or send me a message in some way. Feel free to share this with your friends. Bye for now.